Meanwhile, our monthly visit with Representative Dr. John Bizon happens right now. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Richard. It is great to be with you again this morning.
Well, thanks for being here. You've been in the district here in the summer stretches, and I suppose we should start off by talking about what you've been hearing while you've been here.
It's been a great time to get to connect with a lot of people that are still in district. And I have to preface the remarks saying that I took 2 weeks off at the very beginning of the season when my daughter in North Carolina was having a baby. And so I said, yes, by all means, let's pile on. And being a doctor, you would think that she would want me to make sure that I looked after her, and no, that wasn't the case. She wanted me to look after her diabetic dog, and so my job was to chase after the dog and make sure the dog was fine while she was away at the hospital for a few days, and so we have young Oliver with us now, and that is our 6th grandchild.
Well, congratulations.
And so that was exciting beginning of the summer.
So is veterinary medicine similar to human medicine?
It is surprisingly similar. Much more affordable, I have to say, but
okay. There we go.
Many of the same problems and many of the same issues that we as and there's more of a genetic disposition for some of the diseases than I previously realized. That it seems like even among our own pets here, I have one that was deaf, one that is blind now, and there's still a number of issues that you have to deal with.
Well, and Dr. Piet will talk about that tomorrow on the program, I guess. Right. So that's the Saturday morning plan. Meanwhile, when Representative Matern was here earlier in the week, or actually on the phone earlier in the week, we talked a little bit about this program called CARES, which is meant to be gaining information from folks all around Michigan.
All the state, because
mental health services, yeah.
They call it CARES because it's an acronym for Community Access, Resources, Education, and Safety, CARES. And this is a task force that was set by the Speaker of the House. And it has some 15 members on it, and it's a bipartisan effort to go and collect data on the mental health system. And they are looking particularly in addressing veteran care. They're looking for substance abuse treatment. They're looking for better ways of doing the mental health courts and promoting the mental health courts, as well as the training of law enforcement in particular. In the past, it was always the boilerplate language 298 that everyone was very, very concerned with. And this may be an outgrowth of that. This may be going one step further. And I am sure that we have not resolved that problem. How do you integrate both the mental health care with the physical health? Because so often they are intertwined. And we're going to be collecting information now, and we have a couple of sessions left. If we have anyone who likes to travel, who would like to provide some testimony. Okay. The easy way of providing testimony, of course, is by going online and finding the website, because they have a little slot right there that says, please leave your name and your email and your comments. And that way, all of those comments will be considered by the committee, and it's a lot easier than traveling over to the next hearing of the group, which is Tuesday, August 29th at the Oakland. Yeah, it's next Tuesday. It's not far away at all. And it's at the Oakland Community Health Network in Auburn Hills, and that information is online. It's in the afternoon. It's from 2 until 4 in the afternoon. And after that, there will only be one more session that is currently scheduled, and that is for September 7th, and that one will be in Lansing in the Capitol itself.
I see.
And so if you, I think that Lansing is a shorter drive your keyboard is probably shorter still.
That's true. So house.mi.gov/cares would be where you'd find that. house.mi.gov/cares. If you have information you'd like to impart on your observations or opinions about mental health services in Michigan, they're trying to gather this information now and study it in the Michigan House. And so this would be your way to do it. house.mi.gov/cares, or you can go to one of those sessions. So as it relates to your observations about the mental health system in Michigan, from your medical perspective, do you have any particular thoughts that stand out as we all look at this?
Well, I think that it's a very, very important area. You know, in a lot of ways, it's been siloed. You have the physical health silo and you have the mental health silo, and all so often those intertwine. And I think that we are still in the process of learning about that. And I think that that's important for our healthcare as we talk about where is healthcare in America going. Yeah, I've been here several times saying that we can't afford our current healthcare system, and we're going to have to find ways of doing things better. And we're searching for those answers. And, you know, I don't think that we can look to Washington necessarily for those answers. And even among the healthcare community, I go off to the AMA meetings because I'm part of that AMA delegation, the Michigan delegation to the AMA for their gathering of doctors from around the United States. And when I'm in those conversations, it seems like we are back to we need to make sure that healthcare is not cut back, and there isn't the concern addressed. One of my major concerns is that our healthcare system right now is being paid for by our sons and our daughters and our granddaughters and and they're going to be paying for our healthcare going into the long-term future, and somehow that just doesn't seem right. But so we need to have that integration of systems, but we need to do it efficiently so that we have savings out of the system, and those savings may come from the court and judicial system, where it said that a high number, 50 to 80% of those who are currently in prison may have some sort of psychiatric disorder or malfunction, mental illness. And it seems like that's a very poor place to keep these people that do have mental illness, instead of going out and finding ways of making them useful citizens in society, and finding how we can encourage them to take the medications and to undergo the programs.
So this is part of this whole examination. It includes those who may be incarcerated and dealing with mental
illness. Of course, yes. Yeah. You know, if you're going to fix the system, you don't fix one thing in the system. You need to fix the system. Right. And so...
is there a sense that the state is not as responsive as it could be in these areas? Is that why this has come up?
You're dealing with a big bureaucracy when you deal with the state. And you know, all too often, yesterday I was with one of our members out in Albion Township, and this particular constituent runs a business, and here the EPA is being less than helpful, changing not necessarily the rules, but the enforcement of the rules. He's been there for 30 years in his particular business, and now all of a sudden there is this emphasis on making sure that all the rules, no matter how silly they may be, are enforced. And there is something wrong with that. You know, we need to make sure that this works for our people, it works for our environment, so we have something that we can hand on to our children that's valuable. But by the same token, we have to be responsive to our citizens and their businesses, and try to make sure that we help them do it right, rather than necessarily shutting them down and making it so that they can't function. So the Trump administration invited county commissioners from across the country. Fortunately for them, not at once. They were in phases, but they all came to the White House and met with various department heads and talked about a number of things. And in Calhoun County, Steve Frisbee and Gary Tompkins went on this track at their own expense, mind you, and got the impression that we were talking about bureaucracy. Right. This was an attempt to turn that around, whereas an administration might have said to a local at one time,
don't call us, we'll call you.
Exactly.
This was turning the whole thing
Reaching
around.
down into the townships and bringing up some of the leaders within the township to get them insight as to what is truly going on at those levels, to see what those problems are that they are facing. And I have to say, I was excited that Steve and Gary both took the Trump administration up on their offer to come down, because I am sure that both of them left a very good impression of Calhoun County, that they enlightened the administration as to some of the problems, particularly with transportation that we have down here. But they are both very, very knowledgeable, and I could not think of better representatives to send down there.
As a member of the state delegation, do you look at this and say, okay, that could complicate things? That is to say, somewhere in between the county commission and the president,
there ought to be something.
There is a state legislature and state legislators at the federal level. Does this bypass any of that?
I'm not at all concerned with bypassing that. I think that it is a very, very good idea when Washington doesn't know how to solve a problem that we send it down to the states. And we aren't going to, and here I'm talking particularly healthcare. We have transportation problems as well, and I would love to come up with better answers for transportation. I would love to see us have additives that will allow the roads to be more elastic, to have a little give and take for expansion without crumbling in the process. And it seems like there ought to be some sort of solution there. I think in the past I had said discussions with Dow Chemical in the past, and they said, yes, we're working on this. We're hoping in a few years we're going to have something that's going to allow for that expansion contraction with the durability that we need to make roads safe and keep them from crumbling. And I fully anticipate that we're going to find, and we may have to look around the world. We may have to look up to Canada. We may have to look over to Asia to see what they are doing in some of their colder climes, because it seems like we are behind in that technology, and we need to make sure that we aren't harboring and saving one sector of our transportation building process, that we are not saying that the status quo is where we need to be, because my impression is that that isn't working for us. We pour in some $33 billion. I think we're up to $39 billion now. We're headed up to $4.5 billion in the next couple of years. And with that much money being thrown at our roads, we ought to have good roads. And if you build a road, and Governor Engler bonded the roads for 30 years. It would have been nice if they lasted 30 years.
Right.
They only lasted, when you ask the bonding companies how long they will bond for, they say, no, we're only going to bond for 5, 7, maybe 8 years at most, because they know that the roads aren't going to last longer than that time, and they aren't going to bond for a longer period than that.
Right.
Unless the state issues those bonds, and then you're paying for them well after the roads are crumbled and need repair.
Tell you what, if you want to drive on some bumpy roads, go to Detroit. I was there last weekend. It always reminds me how smooth the roads are over here when you go over there. Quickly before we go, we talked last time you were here about the part-time legislature idea. The lieutenant governor, who's a proponent of it, was on right after you. We played a clip of you saying, no, don't like it. Dave Maturin doesn't like it. We look for some institutional memory on this issue, so we talked with Dr. Joe Schwartz about it. He doesn't like it. And by the way, he says this won't go anywhere. Do you agree with that?
There are a lot of people that like that concept of a part-time legislature, because it's supposed to save money and supposed to keep people from being able to write silly regulations. And from that standpoint, I can understand the quest. But there is no place that they have that combination of a part-time legislature along with term limits. And I think that there is so much power being given to the bureaucracy as well as the lobbyists. And I think that once we point that out, a lot of people say, well, maybe I better rethink this. And they don't necessarily say, oh, you're right, I necessarily agree with you. But I am very happy walking away with the statement, let me just think about this a little bit more, because I think that's where we need to go. I think that there is some public will. There are a lot of people who say it is so poorly written as a proposal for the ballot that there can be legal challenges to it, and maybe that's where they're coming from the standpoint of saying this isn't going to go anywhere. But I think that among citizens, it's never a given that something is or is not going to go. We've had some very surprising elections in the past, and if individuals have thoughts, comments, I just wanted to throw in that tomorrow over at the Lux Cafe, I'm going to be having one of my breakfast hours at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to have a little table there and be willing to listen to any of your listeners who are concerned with state government, and we'll be there for approximately 1 hour and hope to have whoever is there be able to speak, and I can collect more information. And I do this twice a month, every month. Once out in Albion, once in Battle Creek, and tomorrow is the Lux Cafe just north of I-94 on Capitol Avenue Southwest. And we'll be there in the morning if any of your listeners would like to speak with me. All right, that's starting at 8 with Representative Dr. John Bizon tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. All right, we'll catch up in September.